So suspense account. A suspense account looks like a T account. It is a T account. It's a general account, a suspense account. So suspense account, what it does is it assists in completing double entry when correcting errors. So for now, I know I'm talking something out of this world to you guys. If you're a beginner, I know I'm talking something out of this world. You may not be understanding what I'm saying. So you will understand as you go through the video, and through practice, you will understand. So basically, suspense account is an account that is used to complete double entry when correcting errors in the trial balance. So now, before we get deeper with suspense accounts, may you please raise for me about 2 reasons why a trial balance may fail to balance. We have 60 seconds on this, starting now. Can you raise for me 2 reasons why a trial balance may fail to balance? It's general knowledge. Let's go. Think hard, think hard. It's not bad to try, it's not bad to fail. Write something. Write something. Wait in 60 seconds. $30 seconds to go. $15 seconds to go. Oh, so time is up. You were asked to give me 2 reasons, so I'll give you 3 reasons. I'll actually give you more for your own benefit, right? Yes. So I hope you have tried and I hope you've got something. If you fail to get something, it's alright. It's alright. As long as you tried. Try your best. That's important. To try, you have to scratch your mind. Think general knowledge. General knowledge doesn't just mean you have to know that something from somebody. General knowledge sometimes means something you have to know from within. You have to think from within. So I hope you tried and you got something. Let's go. So let's talk about the 3 errors. So the 3 errors, we have incorrect additions in any account, and we have making an entry only on one side of the accounts. And then we have entering a different amount on the debit side from the amount on the credit side. Let's take them slowly. Incorrect additions in any account. That's our error number 1. Making an entry only on one side of the accounts. Our error number 2. Entering a different amount on the debit side from the amount on the credit side. That's our error number 3. So these are the general and most common errors. We will go deeper with them. So suppose you incorrectly overstate the total of the sales account. This means the credit side of the trial balance is greater than the debit side, making the trial balance to disagree. We're talking about the incorrect additions in any account. Additions may be due to the wrong additions or multiplications. Any calculations that may alter the outcome to become what is not supposed to be coming out. So suppose in the sales account, the sales account, remember Kyle? The sales account is a credit balance. So if you overstate, it means you have put in more than what was supposed to be there. You have overvalued it. So instead of putting 1,000, you put 10,000. That's overstating. So if you incorrectly overstate the total of the sales account, this means that the sales account, remember, it's on the credit side in the trial balance, right? It's income, so it's on the credit side. So if you overstate it, it means the credit side is now larger than the debit side, right? Do you get it? If you overstate the sales account, of which the sales account normally has a balance on the credit side. It means the credit side is now larger than the debit side. Why? Because you've put in an amount that is not supposed to be there. An amount that does not have a double entry, because it does not have a corresponding debit balance. So now if you overstate the sales account, the credit side is going to be bigger. This can also happen on the debit side, but we will give an example of the credit side just for simplicity. So I've explained incorrect additions in any account. Let's go next to making an entry only on one side of the accounts. So let's assume you made a cash sale of $200, right? The correct entry you're supposed to make is to debit cash $200 and credit sales $200. That's the correct entries you are supposed to make. However, let's forget about these correct entries. Let's now assume you forgot to make the credit entry, right? Remember, you should debit cash 200 and credit sales 200. But you have forgotten to make the credit entry, which means you have forgotten the sales entry. So it becomes only debit 200. That's what you have done, right? We are assuming that's what you have done. So in the trial balance, what will happen? In the trial balance, remember, cash is an asset. So cash will be okay because you have treated it okay. But the credit sales, you did not put the credit sales. Credit sales are on the credit side of the trial balance. So now you do not put 200, which means sales will be undervalued by 200. So cash will be okay on the debit side as an asset. 200 will be there. But in the sales, there will be no 200 because you forgot to put the 200 on the credit side of the sales account. So that's it about making an entry only on one side of the accounts. If you notice something, I'm playing with Dedicayo. Debit, assets, drawings, and expenses. Credit, income, liability, and equity. That's what you have to know in your head. That's what I'm just using here. If you know that, it's easy for you. That's very true. If you know that, it's easier for you. Our third and final error is entering a different amount on the debit side from the amount on the credit side. So let's talk about this. You make a cash sale of $300. This time you incorrectly enter debit cash 500 and credit sales 300. Did you see the anomaly here? I said you made a cash sale of 300, but what happened? You debited cash 500. 300, 500. You made a cash sale of 300. You debited cash 500 and credit sales 300. So you treated sales correctly, but cash, you treated it correctly, but the amount now. So the entries are correct, but the figure in cash is incorrect. In the trial balance, the debit side will be greater than the credit side by $200. Did you see that? Because cash is 500. Yet it's supposed to be 300. There's a difference of $200, which means cash is overstated by $200. We're going to discuss about how we deal with these then. How do we correct these? Right now I'm just making you and helping you identify and understand what an error is and how it appears and how these errors I've told you to list down are presented. So I hope you got it here. Make sure you jot down notes. Notes are very essential, right? So now let's talk about how to correct these errors. So I'm relating back to the examples I was using previously. So we said you overstate sales account. So now I'm correcting the error. with digits now. We're dealing with digits now. So suppose you incorrectly overstate with $800 the total of the sales account. How do you correct this? So to correct this, you have to debit sales, right? 800 and credit what? Suspense? Yes. So let me explain this. Why are we debiting sales? Remember, sales have a credit balance. The sales account has a credit balance. So we overstated it, which means on the credit side, it's more than what it's supposed to be with $800. So it's overstated with $800. To correct this, we have to debit $800. Remember, it has a credit balance, so it's on the credit. So to correct this error, we now have to debit 800 to reduce that other 800 which is on the credit side. I hope you got it there. So then if you debit $800, what is the double entry? What then do we credit? Remember, in accounting, it's always double entry. If you debit one account, you have to credit another account. If you credit this account, you have to debit this account. So in correcting this error, we said we have debited the sales account $800. It means the only account being left behind is the suspense account, because there's no other account to adjust. We only overstated sales $800, and it was only sales. So to correct this, we have to debit sales and the other account, which is suspense account. Let's go to the next question. You made the cash sale of $200. Let's now assume you forgot to make the credit entry, so it becomes only debit cash, $200 in the trial balance. The debit side of it will be okay, but the credit side of it will be lower with $200 because it was not credited to sales. Let's repeat the question. Let's now assume you forgot to make the credit entry, so it becomes only debit cash, $200 in the trial balance. The debit side of it will be okay, but the credit side will be lower with $200 because it was not credited to sales. Remember, this is a cash sale. We are on error number 2. This is a cash sale. So in this cash sale, we forgot to make the credit entry. So in your head, you should think, what was supposed to be the correct entry to be made? So the correct entry to be made was, we were supposed to debit cash $200, credit sales $200. So in the trial balance, now that we have forgotten to credit sales, remember we only debited cash in this scenario, we now have to correct it. We are not going to correct the cash entry because the cash entry is correct. We were supposed to debit it and we did debit it. We have to correct the credit part. So what do we do to correct it? Let's go to the paper part of the second scenario. So in the first place, what we're supposed to do is debit cash $200 and credit sales $200, which is the correct thing, right? But we didn't do that. However, on actual ground, you only debited cash $200. To correct this, now you have to make the correct sales entry you should have made in the first place, and you now have to do what you were supposed to do in the first place. What were you supposed to do in the first place? You were supposed to credit sales, right? But you didn't. So to correct this, we are going to credit sales, because that's the correct thing. That's what we are supposed to do. We are going to credit sales. What then do we debit? We do not debit cash this time, because cash, we have already debited cash, right? Remember our error, we said in the error we debited cash but we forgot to credit sales. So we are only correcting the sales element, not the cash element, because the cash element is correct. So we are going to credit sales, because that's the thing which needs correction. We are going to debit suspense. Why suspense? It's because there is no other account that needs correction. Suspense account is the corresponding account to all those other accounts that require correction and do not have another corresponding account that requires correction. So you credit sales and debit suspense. Clear there? Let's go to the next one. So error number 3 now. You make a cash sale of $300. This time you incorrectly entered debit cash 500 and credit sales 300. The entries are correct, but the figure in cash is incorrect. Sorry. Did you notice that? You made a cash sale of 300. This time you incorrectly entered debit cash 500 and credit sales 300. So you debited 500 instead of 300. There's a difference of 200 there. Did you notice that? So cash has been overstated by $200. If you say 500 minus 300, that's 200. What then do we do to correct this? Take $200 difference and you credit cash 200 to reduce it. Remember, cash is an asset, so it has a debit balance. To reduce an asset's value, we credit it, right? So credit cash 200. Why? Because we have to reduce it. It has been overstated. It's overvalued. So we have to reduce its value so that it becomes that which we need. So the corresponding double entry account now. Remember, we debit cash and credit sales. That's the correct thing which was supposed to be done, and it was done. But then this time we need to correct an error on the cash side, and the sales side is okay. So the only account we can then transfer this error to is the suspense account. So the corresponding double entry account, which is the sales, is correct, so we do not adjust it. So we debit suspense account. So we credit cash and debit suspense account. I hope you got it there. You credit cash to reduce it. Automatically that means you are debiting the other account, which is the suspense account. As long as you credit the first account, it means you're debiting the suspense account. If you debit the account you need to correct, it means you're going to credit the suspense account. You're going to get this through practice. I know first time it seems difficult and stuff, but you will get it, don't worry. So if you are not jotting down notes from the previous slide on how to correct such errors, you have to go back, I think it was 10 seconds ago, and copy all that information, because now we are about to apply it into the suspense account. So for now we're going to skip this part which says differences per trial balance. We only want to deal with errors. I will explain all these other terms and stuff later in another video. So our error number 1, remember we said suppose you incorrectly overstate with 800 the total of the sales account. So we said the solution is to debit sales 800, credit suspense. So we're going to count the suspense account and credit it with what? With $800. So in the description box you write sales account. Why are we writing sales account? This is because sales account is the corresponding account. Do you get it? By corresponding account, I mean it's the double entry account to the suspense account in this case. We said debit sales, credit suspense. So if we are crediting the suspense, we have to mention that this amount is to correct an entry in the sales account. So we write sales account 800. To somebody who knows accounting, in accounting language, when you start understanding accounting, you will automatically know that we debited sales account by only this, right? Let's go to the second one. It says debit suspense, credit sales. That's what we did, right? As a correction. Yes, debit suspense, credit sales. So we come to the suspense account, we write sales account. Why? Because we credited the sales account. We are debiting suspense. We say debit suspense. So yeah, we debited suspense $200. But in the description we say sales account. Why? Because the corresponding account to this error is the sales account. We're saying if we debit the suspense account $200, what are we going to credit? We're going to credit the sales account. That's why in the description we write sales account. So we write sales account $200. I hope you're getting it. Let's go to the next. So we said debit suspense, credit cash. Why did we do this? Remember, cash had been overstated by $200. We're on the third error, right? Cash had been overstated by $200. So what do we have to do? We have to adjust that $200. So we have to reduce cash by $200. How do we reduce cash by $200? We credit cash with $200 and debit suspense. So to debit suspense now, we write in the description box cash, then we write $200. We're debiting cash, $200 in the suspense account, but in the actual cash account we are going to credit $200. Why? We are saying we have debited the suspense account $200. So what are we going to credit? We're going to credit the cash account. I hope you're getting it, and I hope you got it. So simply that's a suspense account. I've used a simple version of a suspense account to simplify suspense accounts. A more advanced video will be coming soon, which will be explaining deeper suspense account items.
So if it doesn't balance, what then do you do? So if you have seen on the screen, you put the difference of the debit side and the credit side is unidentified balances. This means these are errors which are not yet resolved. But if it balances, then yippee, you did it. If it doesn't, then there are some errors which haven't been identified, or there's an error in what? In your preparation of the suspense account. But do not fear anything when it doesn't balance, because it's normal also. Accounts not always balance. So if they don't balance, it means there may be some unidentified errors or there is some missing information. So for this purpose of explanation, I hope I've done justice. The suspense account. So that's how we do it. I'm going to be explaining in another video a more complex suspense account. So this is a simple one for the basic. I'll be sending in questions for you guys to answer.
So in summary, the key points is to answer suspense account questions, you have to take it step by step. First of all, list the errors and write down the journal entries that should be used to correct the errors, e.g. debit suspense, credit cash. So when you receive some errors, they're listed in the exam, error number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Go to each error and put in what you are supposed to do in the process of correcting. Like what we're doing, you should debit the suspense and credit cash. You should credit this account and debit suspense, or you should do that Because what will it do, it will then become easier for you to place your journals, and also makes it easy to identify to which side you are supposed to enter an adjustment in the suspense account. Now you know if you have created these journal entries to correct the error. When you go to suspense account, now you know you're just debiting and crediting and debiting and crediting what you have already prepared on your listing. So suspense accounts require practice to get them right. They are highly examinable. So all the best, guys. All the best. Do practice. Work hard. After all, work pays. Effort pays. Right? All the best in your endeavors.